everybody. My name is Marco. I lead developer relations at Ripple, and the goal of this talk is just to give you an overview of NFTs, which is like a topic that today is not top of mind for many people, but we strongly believe that it's an area of opportunity and exciting things due to the fact that it's one of the very few like areas in blockchain where we saw like a new cohort of people joining the space, the blockchain space in the past few years, and that kind of like inspired me and in general, like a lot of people, like to see how adoption is in general gonna look like for all things blockchain. So I think one of the theses there is that maybe something like that starts like a toy, which it's kind of like clearly what happened with NFTs. It's something that over time can become something really powerful and end up not being just like a simple thing, and then it may transform into something meaningful that everybody will rely on and use on a daily basis, and cover other things beyond like the original usage that the early adopters came for. So that is why I'm gonna like walk through why, for example, on the XRPL community, a standard to support NFTs natively in the XRPL, which is a blockchain, was proposed a few years ago by Ripple, and eventually was amended to the ledger by the voting mechanism that the ledger has in order to kind of like have a governance system to add new features to the ledger natively. So I'm gonna
Marco, can I ask you, are you meant to be sharing screen yet, or?
not yet.
Oh,
I will. Yeah. So yeah, so like here's the agenda for today. Today's gonna be a short, relatively short workshop. It's just gonna be about like a little bit of history, a little bit of like just walk through what are like the things that blockchain in general allows, and then to compare and contrast what NFTs add on top of those like existing features. What is like the difference between like the blockchains that enable more than one thing, and then I'm going to delve into NFTs and intricacies about that, and if you're okay, like we can do a demo or something, and how to mint on NFT and in Q&A. So it's going to be relatively short, but feel free to interrupt me at any point in time, or yeah, unmute yourself. So in general, like the point of issuing an asset, like it's kind of like a complicated term. Like I just want to go back to like the origins of a blockchain. 2009 was when Bitcoin was created, in the heels of the economic recession, and like a couple of years later, like a few developers started working on XRP Ledger, and a little bit after, like the XRP token, which is a native currency in the XRP Ledger, started like moving around. It's like those are like the days when everything was financial. So that's how I like probably would characterize this section of history. It's pretty boring for the majority of the people. It's like they kind of like not. I mean, they don't. Not everybody like sees a reason to reinvent money. I think it's a really powerful idea, but it's clearly that not everybody in the streets is like questioning themselves what is money and how do we create like a better form of money. And so that's why like just a tiny amount of people were interested in this field back in those days. And kind of like those people were only like testing out Bitcoin, which was the only thing around in 2010. And the only thing that you can do, like think of these like this is like I'm representing Bitcoin. In general, like the vertices are accounts, and the orange thing, it's like the asset, the native asset, which is Bitcoins that you can move around. And honestly, this is the only thing that you can do with Bitcoin, right? It's a payment system with a caveat that you can just use it to move Bitcoin. So it's not a payment system in the traditional sense. It's like a cash system, but cash, it's only the native currency. And kind of like it was honestly fantastic that that emerged and was invented, but it was limiting in a way, right? And it was based and modeled on the idea of how currencies work. Like currencies in general, you can call them fungible tokens. Fungible means that if I have like a dollar, it should be indistinguishable from any other dollar. So like no one, unless like you actually like, you know, maybe get like an autograph from a celebrity in your dollar, that makes that dollar non-fungible, right? Because that's special and probably value will accrue to it. But in general, that doesn't happen. That's not how we think about money. So in general, that's money should be fungible, and that's actually a good. Otherwise, many problems would emerge if it wasn't fungible, right? So it needs to be like a unit of account, which is one of the characteristics of money, and that's why like it needs to be fungible. Then that's like in Ripple, the company emerged in again in 2012, but one of the things that the company started doing is contributing code to these XRP Ledger blockchain technology, because the idea was to kind of like inspired by Bitcoin, create a system where other forms of money could like complement like this idea of a native currency in a system. So, but kind of like the main objective was to represent forms of value that already exist in the real world. Like a dollar, like wasn't born in a blockchain, but you know the idea was to represent those dollars, those units, and that you can like use them to kind of like swap them for native cryptocurrencies, or that you can just like move them around, and that's the idea of like representing other fungible tokens. So this is like what the people were doing, again, very financial focused, but this is like the only use case that I could see in those days. We're talking about 2013, 2014. That's at the time myself, I was experimenting with a remittance service using these blockchains in order to represent dollars and pesos and facilitate cross-border transactions between the US and Mexico. And the crowd in those days were honestly like just financial oriented people. And this is like what I would call like generation number 2 of blockchains. The ones that are capable of representing several assets, but still really focused on things like currencies, which are all fungible. And then the idea of that came in 2016, and I'll talk about more in detail how it all started. It's the idea of having like these weird one of one, weird in the sense of like rare, scarce assets, leveraging like the same account system that facilitates the value movement, and kind of like using those same primitives to really be able to receive and send and even mint these other forms of value, which are what are like non-fungible tokens. And again, like what makes non-fungible is that you cannot, like, you can distinguish always one from the other. And now it's kind of like obvious, but in 2015, like people were kind of like playing with the idea, but there were a lot of people on Reddit and other forums kind of like arguing what would be like the best way to spec out like these functionalities on top of the existing blockchains. And one day, like a protocol built on top of Bitcoin called Counterparty, which is this XRP. It's a native currency for that system. Today, it's not well known, but in 2015, it was one of like the trendy blockchains. And Counterparty had this idea of representing things like non-fungible assets. So the goal was, for example, think of cards. Think like for example, Magic was like this game that you know, like each people used to have like these cards and play and represent those type of games, like require like some programmability that was not possible in Bitcoin. So that was not the only use case, but the idea was that you could represent any form of value, like shares, like items in a game. Those are like the ideas floating around, and the creators of Counterparty were kind of like experimenting with it. But one of the limitations was that it was built on top of Bitcoin, and that made it very slow. Like in the previous workshop, this is just for like just an overview. One Bitcoin transaction takes by design at least 10 minutes. So this protocol, Counterparty, required 2 Bitcoin transactions. So if you were to transfer a non-fungible asset to another account, so you would have to wait at least 20 minutes. So think of that, how inefficient that is, or how bad the experience would be. Anyway, like people were still using it. And that's how the non-fungible, the first cohort of non-fungible tokens emerged. So here you can see like this shitcoin card is something that emerged in a Telegram group. So someone used this Counterparty protocol to say, hey, guys, I just minted these cards, which maybe one day will be worth millions. So I'm giving some of these to everyone in this group who's interested, and that's how it all started. And that collection, which is the rare Pepes, it's kind of like in the Bitcoin ecosystem. It's a very well known phenomenon because it's kind of like it combines a little bit of art. So people were using Pepe, which is this frog, to represent a lot of the things that were occurring at in those days, like things related to crypto, like I don't know, like like crypto is never short of drama. So all of these like events that were happening in those days were captured by some artist. So this is not a collection that was created by a single artist. So people in a disaggregated in an aggregated way, they people were submitting like their own Pepes, and there was like one coordinator that was aggregating all of these like pieces of art to like an index. And then eventually, like that coordinator like created like some form of series, and then it stopped gathering like more rare pepes, and that became like the original rare pepe collection. And you still can use counterparty to trade them. Some of them actually are worth like dozens of thousands of dollars. When there's a bull market, there's a craziness, and some of these go and are auctioned for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it can be considered like the first collection. And then the problem again was that the foundations on which these cards were created, honestly, was not great. So Ethereum came a little bit afterwards and created a better substrate for this type of non-fungible tokens. And they even, like, the community within Ethereum created a standard, the ERC 721 standard, which became an easy way, on a standardized way for people to create and mint non-fungible tokens. And honestly, that's what that standardization is what created like the first like the first wave of creation of several collections that became iconic and really valuable. Today, in the context of XRP Ledger, catching up with this phenomenon that has become like one of the most interesting things in the past few years. So the community asked for a standard so that natively anyone could mint NFTs on the XRP Ledger. That means that, you know, learning from all of these other standards that emerge in other blockchains, taking like those elements that were like the best practices, and put them and encoded it in a feature so that anyone that was using the XRP Ledger was able to get access to a few new functionalities, which include the creation or minting of non-fungible tokens, but also offering those non-fungible tokens in exchange of XRP, and the ability to accept those offers as well. And one of the other things that it's interesting is that it allows natively the ability to collect royalties for the minter. That means that if you're an artist and creates an NFT, essentially that NFT can be transferred over and over like on the blockchain, but every time there's going to be there's a transaction, there's going to be, in an automated way, a royalty that it's a stipulated amount in the creation, at the moment of the creation of this token, that will be collected by the address of the minter. So the interesting part came afterwards. I mean, because this sounds like maybe very, very obvious, but what came afterwards was something unexpected, which is people started to create like the first collection of what is today known profile pictures. So PFPs, or profile picture collections, are right now a very hot category of NFTs, which essentially they use some tools to create, like, you know, a collection of 10,000 normally non-fungible tokens, each of which is unique. And the way that they make it unique is like they create a set of attributes, and randomly they assign some of these attributes to, like, one attribute can be these like 3D glasses, one attribute can be smoking and you know, hair, And in general, like an algorithm will randomly assign some of this to each of the 10,000. And that first collection, which is called CryptoPunks, that emerged on Ethereum, today probably each of these, even today, that is not considered a hot market, the NFT, as much as it used to be a few years ago. Still, you need to pay around like 150K US dollars if you want to acquire one of the 10,000 CryptoPunks. And in reality, people obviously have been voicing these as a bubble, but in reality, the weird thing is that even when the majority of NFTs, price-wise, it collapsed. If you see like the market a year ago, like a lot of the NFTs that were like pricey like 3 years ago, last year, honestly, like went to almost zero. Except this collection, it didn't. Actually, it preserved the majority of the value, which is why I think it's worthwhile discussing how that happened. Essentially, there's a community of holders, which I call pseudonymous communities, because like it's not that I put my name if I own one of these. It's a community of owners and holders who meet in person, who like share the idea of this collection, kind of like representing the beginning of an era of NFTs. And because of that, seeing the collection as a piece of art that in a way has this narrative of this being like the first collection that I mean, there's never going to be a first PFP collection except CryptoPunks, and people consider that like enough to be considered a piece of art. And some of these CryptoPunks have been acquired by museums. Some of them have been auctioned by these famous auction houses, and that kind of like validates a lot of like the thesis of these items to kind of like be in a different category from what we all thought, which is it's very criticized in social media that these are JPEGs, but in reality, there's something else that I would encourage you to try to understand and at least follow, to kind of like see how and which other ways and forms of value are starting to emerge that are very different from what today we consider valuable. So in my opinion, like what this is interesting is that the only thing that makes these items valuable is just a community and a story. And it sounds like weird, but as long as the story like lingers and still like it's considered like something that represents a moment in history of a category that it's interesting for many and that are willing to pay for them, so the items of these collections will maintain the value. And this kind of like is part of like a trend where narratives are a really important driver for value accrual. So going back to like how do we interact with these things, or how like we create these things in something like XRP Ledger. So as I mentioned in the previous workshop, every feature that it's offered by the ledger, it's offered to everyone natively, and it's added to a list of existing features. So one of the features is moving XRP. The other feature can be exchanging those XRP for dollars or euros, and a feature which was NFT creation or NFT offer creation. So that's something that natively right now it's offered extensively by the Ledger, and anyone can build an interface to those features, right? So the same SDKs are which are like these libraries in different programming languages. They give you access to all of these functions that allow any programmer who speaks JavaScript or Python is going to be able to call a function and immediately like create an NFT. So I'm gonna like show you like what are like the data items or the parameters that you will need to create one of these. But the concept is really simple. This is an XRP Ledger Explorer, which allows you to see what lives in the ledger. And for example, this is an NFT that we created as a collectible to kind of like for one of the first events that we did for developers in London. So we called an artist in the community who created like this piece of art, which was not only an image, but it was also a file, an MP4 file that has some animation. And essentially what we did, we just created an object, and this object lives on chain. So that information, it's always stored on chain. And that includes like a set of attributes, which is the name, the description, like the name of the collection. And then, as I said, like there's an issuer who's like the address that created like this item. A few configurations are possible. For example, you can configure these to be an item that can be transferred to other addresses. Because, for example, think of NFTs as a technology that you can use to mint badges in a university. So in that case, you don't want people to transfer like a badge of that kind to anyone. It's like non-transferable. So there are a few features that you can use to control what people can do with these items, and then the file, instead of like uploading it to the chain, which is an important part that I want to talk about, is it's not the file is not stored on chain, right? So the only thing that it's stored on chain, it's this URI. The URI in this case points to like this file actually lives in a decentralized storage system that it's what IPFS is. And then that guarantees that as long as some people can participate in that decentralized storage system, and they can like store that item, so the item will exist, and it will never change this unique identifier, because this unique identifier, it's kind of like it's a fingerprint, it's a digital fingerprint of the item itself. Let's say that in IPFS, I can upload a file. It doesn't matter what format, and you will obtain a unique identifier that will look like this thing that starts with a Q. And if someone else like uploads the same file, it will obtain like the same, right? Because this is just a hash, which is a fingerprint of the file itself. So in that sense, you guarantee that an object, it's the integrity of the object. And also you can see that who was like the first person who uploaded the item in the entire history, because that's traceable with this unique identifier. So that's why like IPFS is powerful and widely utilized for this purpose. There are other collections that were like just pointing to their own servers. So think of this URI as some link where you can put, like, for example, your HTTP www as ycdomain.com and then / name of your file. The problem with that is that normally if the server, if you change your domain, if you don't pay it, for example, like the image will be not accessible, it's not decentralized, and then the item will be lost, and kind of like it will be forever broken. And that's what kind of like that's how the internet today works, and IPFS was precisely created to address that, so that you don't have those broken links all over the internet. And it's kind of like an innovation that it's used. It's not related to the NFT itself, but it's something that it's definitely really complements really well what the NFT is intended for. So I'm going to stop here to kind of like ask if there are any questions. Okay, if there are no questions, I will just walk you through, like, really easily how would you mint something on XRP Ledger. So let me. Okay. So the idea for you is just to get a sense. The idea is it's not for you to follow this tutorial or to type it. It's just like to see, like, what are the elements that someone requires if you were to create an app that mints NFTs. Essentially, like, what you will do is you will import your library. This is a JavaScript file, so it requires like the XRPL.js, which is the library that has the functionality to call all of the existing features on the ledger. And then what you will do, what I did was I created a key pair, which is like a set of public and private keys, which is what essentially the only thing that you need to interact with blockchains is this key pair. So that key pair consists of like the secret part, which it's something that obviously no one should have access to except the owner of the account. So this is obviously like a very insecure way to manage this information, but it's just for demonstration purposes. So what I do here in this line is essentially I use this wallet that is part of the library to kind of like instantiate like this wallet object that will allow me to manipulate like this key pair and do several things like signing transactions, or here just for example just printing like the public address. So each secret key will have a corresponding public key that will be like your address, your public address, like the same way that you have an address, a physical address for your house. This is like an address in the blockchains that people will use to send you assets. It's your unique identifier. So here you will see that you only need to know your secret key in order for you to derive from that secret key your public key. once that you have that wallet object, so now what you're gonna do is like, this is what you do for any transaction that wants to interact with the XRP ledger, which is an asynchronous function. And that's because interacting with XRP ledger, it's like a promise. So you will expect a response from the network. So you don't know when it's gonna respond. So like the idea is to kind of like handle that properly. So you create like this async function in which you will like do a couple of steps. One is you will create a connection like using WebSockets. That's why like this points to the testnet. And essentially the goal of this is to create a bidirectional connection with the blockchain, with the XRP ledger. And you will only do that with this client.connect. Once that the connection is established, you will send a message to the blockchain in which you will specify what is the type of transaction that you will perform. In this case, the name of the transaction is NFT token mint. And then you will need a couple of other things. For example, what is the account that you are using? And then you will specify as well, like the URI that I already described, and you will include the IPFS address of the file that will essentially be the image that corresponds to. In this case, this is an image that it's just showing like the planet Earth. And once that you send that object to the network, you essentially, well, you add a few features that automatically will be added using this autofill helper function, and that will like complete this object that the network will be allowed to validate, and if everything's correct, mint your NFT. So essentially, that is the only thing that you need. The rest of the things is just what the network does, which is kind of like this is just a bunch of logs that will print every step, so that you can see what it's doing. But what I want to show you essentially, it's that by running this piece of code, what you will be sending is like a serialized version of the transaction, which is like just an encoding, and then you will get a response from the XRP Ledger blockchain, where you will have now a fully minted object, which is an NFT that will have a unique ID. And this is like the only thing that you will essentially need in order for you to kind of like have that item created. So if I go right now to the, for example, well, if I go to the Explorer, this one was the testnet, I will be able to type this new ID and then I can see the NFT. The NFT that includes the URI. And obviously, like, this is not the friendliest way to see it. So for example, I can go to a more friendly Explorer. I can type this unique identifier, and I will be able to see the image that will include like all of these parameters, and it's transferable. It will include like a royalty that was stipulated in this set of information. I put here like the royalty, that it's the transfer fee, and essentially all of that is configurable by a person who's creating the NFT. So it takes nothing to really start minting and kind of like innovating. And you can see right now a lot of projects that are taking advantage of this new feature and that are creating a business out of this. You can see XRP Cafe. It's a very successful marketplace where a lot of collections are using their functionalities to mint and to create these collections, and people are using it to create game items and all sort of things that in a way it creates communities, and it creates the ability for those communities to exchange value in different ways from the ones that we're used to. So, and with that, I think I wrap up the demonstration. Yeah.
I wanted to ask for the IPFS recuperation feature that you talked about.
Yeah.
Are there some what kind of business application did you see using this feature? So if you have any example in mind.
Yeah. So IPFS it's really it's more like a parallel system that in a way it's incredibly strong for security, right? Because it's kind of like it transforms the way that the internet works today. So for example, if you are in general, think of phishing as one of the most like relevant problems in today's like social media era. When someone sends you a file, you cannot like know the integrity of the file, right? So you cannot know if it's altered or not. IPFS, it's a way in which you can identify the route, and within the route, you can have the fingerprint of the file, and that is incredibly powerful. So you can think of multiple security features preventing phishing or scams that uses IPFS as a backbone of this, right? So that's just one example that comes to my mind. The other thing that it's interesting is just that it's decentralized. So as I said, like it's a peer-to-peer network. So no one on the IPFS layer, no one can guarantee that the file is stored, right? Because if people don't store the file, so the file like doesn't exist. So on top of that, the same company that created that protocol then has like another system that is called Filecoin, and the Filecoin has also the ability to kind of like put the right incentives for someone to store the item in a computer so that it's forever preserved in the network. So I think that's another example of usage that I consider also interesting. But in general, I would say that, in my opinion, because of the security properties and the era we live in, I consider IPFS to be kind of like one of the most important protocols in the future to guarantee security.
To store the item on a computer to preserve it. Does that mean that the organization that owns, or the person that owns the infrastructure to store the item can access to it? Like, are there some like privacy possibility? Like, if I store something like a file on it, like a PDF, does the person that store it can read it, or is it like kind of like encrypted to not
Yeah.
to not access to it?
It's a good question. It's totally public. So, for example, let me see if I have like the like you can see here, essentially like this IPFS, this is just the identifier, which is called CID. And the file, in this case, I'm gonna maybe go into the weeds, but in this case, this is the file that it's stored in IPFS, right? It's just a JSON file, right? A JSON file that contains like these parameters. These parameters also have like the image and the animation and that it also uses IPFS. So if you, for example, you would expect here you include like the identifier that takes you to, and then you can see, for example, the image. So to answer your question, everything is public, right? So that's kind of like the nothing is encrypted, but nothing prevents you from uploading an encrypted file, right? So you can encrypt a file, upload it to IPFS, encrypt it, and you can only like give the key to decrypt the file to someone else, and then like it doesn't matter if people can access it because it will be encrypted. So yeah, there are possibilities to use asymmetric encryption to basically take advantage of it, and to also, yeah, but to benefit from the security guarantees and the integrity guarantee.
Thank you.
So Marco, if there are no more questions, maybe we can wrap things up.
Yeah, it's perfect. Well, thank you all, and please, if anyone else has questions, please feel free to reach out over the email. I think my email address is already in the invitation for this. So please feel free to reach out, especially if you are interested in learning more or using or working on a project that uses the NFT primitives on the XRP Ledger.